Good. Is everybody ready to get started? Balder Bomans can sit down. Thank you. Right, good to see everyone back again. The next panel is going to be about synthetics. I mean, you guys are the stars of the show, so I'll let you guys kick off your introductions. We've obviously heard yours already, but let's do it again for the guys.
Yeah, I'll give a brief Tracer overview. So I'm Ray, one of the co-founders of Tracer. We're building derivatives infrastructure.
Cool. I'm Jason. I'm a co-founder and CTO of Float Capital, and we building tokenized synthetic positions.
Hi, my name is Mikhail, and I'm founder and CTO of Gearbox. We are building composable leverage for DeFi space.
Thank you guys for the intros. So maybe the first question I wanted to start with is one thing maybe some skeptics have said about the synthetics industry, or the niche, is that it's been one of the oldest sort of niches of DeFi, but it's not the one with the most traction. What do you guys think is or has been the cause of this lack of traction, and maybe also tack on what is sort of the next innovation to unlock that adoption?
Sure. So I think one of the things that both of our projects are tackling is the capital efficiency side of it. So typically, synthetic assets have required over-collateralization, and that's not capital efficient, and it brings along with it its own risks that are very much not friendly to retail. You have to really know what you're doing if you're going to be messing around with CDPs on volatile assets. And then you can lay on top of that leverage, and then it's a whole nother ball game. So I think just the predictability of how these assets work hasn't quite been cracked by any project yet. And that's what we're working on at Float. I'm sure you have a few more things to say.
Yeah, I think one of the big pieces on top of that for us that we're focusing on is really nailing the composability piece. I think derivatives or on-chain derivatives in the past have sort of been isolated ecosystems. So you're margin trading on perpetuals on-chain, and you can't really take that asset and use it anywhere. It plays into the capital efficiency as well, but providing the option for people to take that asset and use it across DeFi, because that's one of the most powerful things in DeFi. So yeah, we're really focused on enabling that for derivatives.
I think for you at Gearbox, composability is a big one as well.
Yeah, composability in Gearbox is maybe core feature, and we are working on capital efficiency now. You can get leverage up to 12x12 on chain, and the way how we create this composability does not require any data about people. So you can open credit account and get X10 more money, manage it. Of course, this makes a little bit complexity, and people should learn new things. But by the way, we can see that the industry growing time by time. We start maybe from swaps, then lending protocols come to scene, and now maybe in synthetic assets, in leverage, it's a very new big market, which pretty new for people, but I think it has a lot of opportunity.
Okay, so this composability, I think, is something I'm hearing is a big thing. Do you think that's maybe the next step to unlock, let's say, the next, 200 yards on synthetics?
I mean, the reason we're making them into tokens, right, is that they can be used in other protocols. We could do everything we're doing without tokens and simplify our smart contracts, but we're not, because things become more powerful when they become the Legos that plug into other things. And I think we're yet to see that blossom out, but that's our thesis, and that's what we focused on.
Yeah, I think for us, the sort of roadmap for composability is early on just letting DeFi native users sort of play with these things and see what they come up with. But the beautiful thing is you have people that will build systems on top of that. So structured product type systems where it's actually sort of abstracted away from the end user. But because we're all sort of using the same protocols under the hood, you can actually have these really user-friendly vaults or setups, structured products that people can use without really needing to understand the underlying derivatives, because yeah, it does get complex when you have these composable systems. You know, you're taking a 5x here, you're lending and borrowing against it there, you're levering up in that way. And to the real end user, they probably don't care too much about that deep DeFi play, but you sort of need to have both to enable the ecosystem.
And in Gearbox, we use a totally new approach for leveraging. Instead of provide and user experience, we create an ability to create the new way of using existing DeFi protocols. So, for example, if you combine Gearbox with Uniswap or SushiSwap or Curve, you immediately could get margin trading. If you combine Gearbox with Earn, you can get farming with leverage. If you combine Lido with Gearbox, you can get leverage staking and so on and so on. So our goal is to create a leverage layer of DeFi space and connect a lot of new protocols which could work with ERC20 and existing VAS to create a freedom for people, and they could create unlimited quantity of strategies, which is pretty nice and good. And of course, as well, we can create new assets on Gearbox and new tokenized way how to be more capital efficient.
Okay, so the composability has been one big thing. I think one thing you kind of front ran me on, the vaults. I think that's been maybe the past year one of the hottest things in crypto. Everybody's doing structured or dynamic strategies managed in vaults. What is your guys' opinion on that? Is it something you're scared of in terms of replacing people's interest in synthetics? And where do you see that going?
I think people kind of need it at the end of the day. Expecting everyone to interact with these primitives probably isn't the path that we're going to take. So I wouldn't say we're scared about it, but we want to be very involved in not only helping produce them with other protocols, but natively producing them ourselves. I think that they add to the efficiency of your product. They make things more capital efficient. So we want to go down that path ourselves, but then also collaborate with everyone in the space that's building them, because you kind of need a derivatives base layer for a lot of these vaults. And I mean, again, we're all composable, so plugging into tracer liquidity, plugging into various other forms of liquidity to create these structured products is kind of the future we want to see.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of refinement required to make vaults work. I think they're very symbiotic with derivatives and synthetic positions in that, you know, especially a leveraged synthetic position can shift in quite unexpected ways, and having a vault that somehow rebalances that over time is actually super useful. It's also super complicated to implement well. We've been doing a lot of research on it, and we thought we had something that was good, and we actually, I wouldn't say...
It's disappointing.
Yeah, no, we've delayed launching our version of vaults because there's hidden complexities that make it, yeah, not something we want to launch to the public just yet, but they are coming, that's for sure.
I think Vault's idea is pretty interesting because market became more and more mature, and customers could be distinguished from people who want to follow passive strategies and who could work 24/7 to find new ways how to make more and more money. And basically Gearbox, based on these ideas, because we have two-side protocol. One side is a passive investors who want to really provide money and forget about all this stuff, and other part is very, very professional traders and investors who could work and share this profit with this passive part. So I think it's a really interesting idea how market is going and how it became more mature and more professional.
Okay, thank you. And maybe on the topic of this maturity, one thing I wanted to touch on is the regulatory angle, right? As this industry matures, that's going to be more and more relevant. How are you guys looking at, let's say, the entire regulatory domain, which is coming after all of you guys eventually, if you make it to the big leagues, right? How are you guys looking at this?
I think, and I'm sure everyone else will echo this sentiment, but it's something we want to see. We'd rather have clear regulation than operate in the dark. From our point of view, we've been really just trying to drive it from different angles. So in Australia, trying to drive regulation around DAOs, around derivatives, but then also in the US and in different places, just being involved in those conversations is important. I think everyone's seen the US regulation kind of go back and forth, and one wrong decision can change things drastically for the entire ecosystem. So yeah, that's our angle. We think that regulation is good. We want to see it happen, but we want to be very involved in getting it to the point where it's something that's real.
Yeah, I mean, we taking a reasonably cautious approach, but it's still DeFi, so I don't think there is such a thing as a fully cautious approach. I think with synthetic assets, a lot of it revolves around the sort of assets and markets you giving. We've stuck to very crypto-native markets, so there's less risk from entities like the SEC and stuff like that. But end game for sure would be to be completely regulated and to offer all the products that we would like to. What's great though is that we are still in an experimental phase, and it doesn't really matter too much, maybe for traction, if we can't have the markets we want. We're happy to have a Bitcoin market while we refine our mechanism, and once we have that mechanism, then the next step is to take it to the masses with every market possible. I guess, on the fine details of the legal, maybe you need a different panel for that.
Yeah, I don't think we have to go there. But okay, so you do say that there are maybe some assets that you are not willing to make a market for just because they are sort of in a regulatory uncertain domain. Is that already the case? Is it impacting you in that way already?
Yes, I would say so. We don't have any stocks. In fact, all of our markets are somehow related to crypto. So they're either crypto assets, or you've got a market that's crypto volatility index, still related to crypto. We've got an interesting market for the flippening, which is like the ratio of Bitcoin's market cap to Ethereum's market cap. But yeah, it'll be interesting when we start listing Google stocks and Tesla and all of that one day.
Soon. Okay.
One day.
Maybe also to sort of touch upon or to continue on the regulatory path. So one of the things, narratives that have been big in the last few months, the last year, has been the UST and the Frax type of stuff. All of those have been coming to fruition a bit. How do you see those types of stable coins and, let's say, the regulatory narratives that surround them impacting your work?
I think we're going to see a lot of, well, there's obviously like the crypto-based stable coins. We're going to see a lot more of them come up. We will see some form of like CBDC eventually from various states. For us, I guess our approach is to be fully modular. So as a DAO, as a protocol, we don't really have to worry about how it's going to look. Anyone can come along and deploy a new market. So we sort of abstract ourselves away from that worry. People can come and create markets settled in any currency. So you can use USDC, you can use USDT if you want to, you can use DAI. We're sort of agnostic to that. But I think people will congregate around stable coins that have the most liquidity. And we've seen those battles already play out. So yeah, we sort of step away from that problem by saying, here's the infrastructure to deploy whatever you want. If you want to market in this new stable coin that's a US CBDC, there you go. And then let the markets sort of play out.
Yeah, I guess Float is very similar to Tracer, so everything he said, but I think a lot of it also revolves around, what opportunities the different stable coins give. Like for Float in particular, we yield enhanced. So markets that use a stable coin that has a good yield mechanism through, Aave or similar, is going to be a better market than one that doesn't. So we're just going to have to keep our eyes open. And we fully modular, just like Tracer. So I think it's exciting that there's more stable coins coming out.
Anything to
Yeah,
add?
we actively use, of course, stable coins, but from my point of view, algorithmic stable coins, because I am from technical side, not from real side, it's pretty interesting how technology could really change the landscape. And for your last question about regulatory, I believe that Coin's law approach has much more opportunity to come in crypto than standard regulatory. And algorithmic coins is really good proof how people was able to create coins which automatically set up the rate and create a lot of strategies, and they should not be managed by people like the first maybe generation of coins. I think if we start to think and focus more on technical side and find new approaches how to create these assets and new ways for technology, it could be more beneficial than try to figure out all this legal stuff and build maybe new laws which create some limits for us. So I'm just for technical side.
Okay, so but are you really against, let's say, any non-algorithmic stablecoin? Like, are you a USDC hater?
No, at all. But I really like technology and how it could be done, because when you can see how many complexity we have at the moment, and basically, to be honest, I believe that the market do as much as we can. We need more developers. We need more people who could understand the complexity of decentralized finance. But all this stuff is pretty new. You can't find a really analog in real world of the algorithmic stablecoins. It's totally new, it's new approach, and using this new approach, which is based on pure tech, from my perspective, it has a lot of opportunities and interesting things in this market. But of course, USDC, USDT, and other stable coins are pretty cool. We use them a lot, so nothing wrong with them.
Okay, there's no wrong answers here, but okay, maybe a completely different question then. So cross-chain, one of the big narratives also that's, I mean, it's been here and it's been here to stay, I guess. How important is cross-chain compatibility and composability for you guys?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So we don't want to fragment liquidity by going cross-chain, but I think what's starting to emerge is that via interesting cross-chain messaging protocols, you actually could have shared liquidity. So at a hackathon, 3 weeks ago, in Barcelona, the Avalanche hackathon, some guys from the Float team built a cross-chain liquidity mechanism on top of Float. It's not production ready and totally unaudited, but there are steps in that direction. It's also really interesting with all these EVM chains that it's very easy and very tempting to just deploy on thousands of chains, and I think we are this close to going that approach, and we could have been on another 10 chains by now. But at this phase of our project, I think the focus is on getting the mechanism really fine-tuned on a single chain, and once we have that, then moving out and working on various cross-chain solutions. But in my opinion, it's very negative, especially the way our markets work, to have multiple markets that don't share liquidity. Shared liquidity is almost essential. So if those sort of mechanisms don't mature and those cross-chain bridges and messaging protocols aren't strong enough, I don't think it's a good idea to do that.
Sounds like we've been sharing strategy docs. But yeah, that's exactly the same for us. We didn't want to deploy on every EVM chain because you get fractured liquidity and it sort of makes the underlying mechanism a lot less efficient. So things like Layer 0, things like Nomad are really exciting to see because it now enables us to sort of roll out these cross-chain systems where we can aggregate liquidity in one place but give access to everyone. So yeah, exact same approach pretty much.
Yeah, so I think when we talk about cross-chain, we should completely distinguish EVM chains, which is pretty simple. You can deploy your protocol on other EVM chains if you test them and you have enough of protocols to be integrated, and chains which built on totally new principles like Polkadot or Solana or Flow and so on and so on. And I think it's like a mental mistake when people try to implement what works on Ethereum with the same logic on Solana or Polkadot. These chains has some basic different concepts. You can't just copy and bring the same experience there because you can't really achieve the goals what they want to solve. And basically what I strongly believe could be a game changer when S2 come to scene. But at the same, sharding is a pretty complex technical question because at the moment we have a very strict bottleneck with ERC20 tokens. Each ERC20 tokens has a mapping which keep your balances. And when a lot of protocols want to update this mapping, you should put all protocols in one shard, which does not provide your scalability. So maybe new concepts like resources, which is implemented in Flow blockchain, or we have some experiments, very interesting experience in this field, how to really make the token contract scalable. And after that, we could start thinking about bridges and new infrastructure. But at the moment, we limit with these token contracts. And basically, even if we create more technology, more throughput, we could be limited. We can't grow but 10th time or 100 time as we want now to be more to have more mass adoption.
Okay, thank you. And maybe to stay with the scaling solutions that you mentioned. I mean, you've all deployed. We're on layer 2s, right? What sort of scaling solutions are you guys most enthusiastic about, and why?
That's an interesting question. My answer is going to be different to like where we've deployed because we actually currently still on side chains only. But I think that's, like I said, the phase we at. I definitely am very enthusiastic on like the sort of ZK side of things, roll-ups. Although currently those technologies are just a little bit more expensive than side chains. So we're on Polygon and Avalanche at the moment. And that's great because we get to test out our product. We don't have a massive TVL at the moment, and we're still iterating. But as soon as we have a version that we think is ready for mainstream, I think definitely a layer 2. I can't tell you which yet. It's still a few more months away.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about ZK rollups as well. So trying to stay on the edge of things like ZK Sync and seeing how that progresses. It feels like that's getting closer. But yeah, we definitely want to see ourselves end up there. We're currently on Arbitrum, but again, the way we kind of see the future for us rolling out is having a main deployment somewhere and then having this cross-chain messaging system so people can pick and choose where they actually want to be, and we'll have aggregated liquidity in one venue. But yeah, to answer, ZK Sync is one thing we're looking quite closely at.
I think it's a pretty interesting question from time perspective. I strongly believe, and I'm very, very interested what Ethereum team is going to release. So we will see merge this summer, and S2 is coming, which has a lot of opportunities. And at the moment, we have no clear picture how it would work because you can't write code today and test makes your hands dirty. On the other side, I'm really excited with Polkadot technologies, and it would be a pretty good competition because Polkadot at the moment has pretty interesting concept, but maybe not so good mass adoptions, not many things done there, but some pretty interesting concept. And Ethereum has a very good market, a lot of great developers who work on it. So implementing S2, I think, is the most interesting point to focus, and Deliver follows the Ethereum roadmap.
Okay, is there anything in particular in terms of these scaling solutions that you are hoping they will unlock for you guys, or maybe in the broader synthetic space?
Yeah, for us, one of the big things is definitely the privacy piece, hence ZK Sync and solutions that enable us to build privacy into the system. To get down the path of mass adoption, you need these privacy tools eventually. And I mean, you can start building them into other L2s or even ETH if you wanted to at like your own protocol level. But it makes sense in our mind to have them enabled and allow us to sort of build out the privacy systems we want. And yeah, that's part of scaling to not only like retail users, but also like to industry and getting TradFi institutions using DeFi instruments.
Yeah, and then I guess throughput. Nothing beats good throughput. Secure throughput, so without sacrificing security.
So what do you think this throughput's is gonna unlock for Float?
For Float, so basically our system works in sort of lockstep. So there's a system-wide update where liquidity moves from long to short or short to long, depending how the market's moving. And with a very high throughput blockchain, you could decrease the time of those updates, just as an example. And it's also just the cost of interacting. So a high throughput blockchain is more likely to unlock a lot more innovation, particularly on the more retail side of things.
I think Gearbox here in a pretty good position because we are extremely gas efficient. We use a special reusable credit accounts technology. It looks like you shouldn't pay for deployment. You can read smart contracts from the system and pay back, which really create very low overhead. So basically, if the gas costs are pretty high, we have a good competitive advantage. We can say people, hey guys, we have very, very low gas consumption, come to us. We are maybe one of the best in the market. But of course, lower gas price create more opportunity for people and developers to create new protocols, to make more experience on chain. And for end users, of course, it's create ability to interact with many protocols, test them. So it's also good for us. So in terms of scalability, I strongly believe in a near future we could maybe achieve X2 in throughput, but by the way, new protocols are coming and maybe we need a little bit more new ideas and approaches in the market to increase the usage.
Okay, I think maybe in the essence of time, I've got one final question. In one or two lines, what do you guys think has been the biggest innovation in DeFi and maybe in particular synthetics? And what do you guys think has been the biggest fad, the biggest non-burger?
I don't know if it's quite a simple innovation, but the new Vault standard for us has been really helpful just so we can start building out how this fully modular system works. Standardization is always helpful, otherwise we have to write custom adapters everywhere. So a simple innovation, but a really helpful one for us. In terms of the biggest fad, I think one thing that we looked into and we are probably going to move down the path of but alter a bit is sort of the VE fad. And I think I like the model, but I think the mistake of just copy pasting what Curve did isn't the approach. So not necessarily a fad, but I think maybe like a pitfall to avoid just copy pasting that and expecting it to work exactly the same everywhere.
It's a good shout.
I think something I think has been a really big innovation is the protocol-owned liquidity sort of movement that Olympus has sort of spearheaded and kicked off. I think, yeah, it's massively important that now people or projects aren't just farming out their tokens; they actually making use of the interest in their protocol. Sure, I think there's a lot of things that have a lot of smoke and mirrors in DeFi. I think it'll be interesting to see some of these very Ponzi mechanic protocols collapse at some point.
Can you name one?
Can I name one? I try and forget the names of the Ponzis.
Understandable.
From my point, I think the biggest innovation would be in toolchain, how we create and test smart contracts. Because as you can see now maybe a few days we can get the news about hacks and so on and so on. And on the opposite side, a very new innovative tools like Foundry, for example, come to scene when you can make more tests, more fuzzing tests, and be ensured that your smart contract work as expected. So I believe when we will get a new way how we can test contracts and make them more stable and resistant for potential attacks, we could create better protocols, has more growth and more calm for investors. And for FAT maybe is opposite because we are focused on security, and I think it's maybe now is a more technical risk for all of us.
Okay, so this was a very technical answer, and there we had the, the VE and Ponzi answers. I mean, guys, it's been a great panel. I want to thank you guys for being here, and everybody give a big hand to the speakers. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Cheers.